This is Trucks and Tractor Power, featuring the superstars of the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Nationals Monster Truck Challenge.
You know, Gary he kind of was spooked in qualifying. I don't know what the problem is. He's not where he wants to be. The top half of the field runs against the bottom half of the field. He's the first guy in the bottom. That puts him against a quick qualifier of the day, none other than the old big blue Bigfoot.
Yeah, you talk about new trucks. This is Bigfoot 10. This is the latest creation from St. Louis in the stable of Bob Chandler. Bigfoot 10, another two-frame race truck.
With the engine in the rear. That's one of the big changes on the 10 truck. The engine went to the rear. Porter in the Chevrolet keeps the engine in the front.
Oh, he got the whole shot. Porter got the whole shot. He leads Bigfoot, but here comes Bigfoot, and Andy Brass may have won it.
He caught him in the air, Gary, right at the finish line on the second jump. He literally flew past him.
How did he ever win this round? Now watch this. The whole shot belongs to Gary Porter right here. The Chevrolet has the advantage over the Ford. Gary Porter leads. They get to the second set of cars, and in the air, Andy Brass takes the victory. It's official. Here's Gary.
Gary, if I was a betting man, I would have bet that win went to you, but that's not the word we're getting.
I thought it did. You know, when we crossed the finish line, I looked over and I thought I was in front of him, but you really can't tell, you know, on a race that close. The judges said he won, so we'll just have to let it go with that and come back another day.
Well, he can take a look at the videotape because, indeed, the video shows that Gary Porter lost by 12 to 18 inches. A good crowd on hand here in Columbus. Hey, how about this? Here's Andy Brass, Bigfoot 10, the newest in the stable of Bigfoot trucks out of St. Louis, Missouri. This is another two-frame racer with a rear engine configuration. He was only the second fast qualifier. That was somewhat of a surprise. And here is the Carolina Crusher with Gary Porter out of North Carolina.
Well, Porter run the engine up front in the Chevrolet. Andy Brass, like you say, comes with the number 10 truck. How do you know it's different? Everybody says the Bigfoot trucks are all blue. The red and yellow stripe tells you it's a racer. And boy, is it a racer. Look at that.
Talk about computer design. That's exactly how Bob Chandler designs the Bigfoot trucks on his home computer. And Bigfoot Andy Brass takes the victory over the Carolina Crusher. So we have Barefoot, the fast qualifier, advancing. Now Bigfoot, the second fast qualifier, has advanced.
Well, through this round, both lanes look to be pretty equal. Nobody's getting advantage so far. The truck that drives the best race is going into the next round.
Some good, close first-round competition here in Columbus, Ohio. We'll take a break and come back. Hi, guys. We're coming back to Columbus. Stay with us. Coming up next, there's Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher. And notice the railroad ties, Army. They're actually testing to make sure these vehicles are in four-wheel drive. Harkening back to the controversy we had last week with Taurus.
Yeah, earlier in the year, there was a whole lot of controversy over whether or not the trucks must be in four-wheel drive. The decision was made, yes. Then you got a problem. How do you make sure they're in four-wheel drive? Very simple. You make them drive over an obstacle like the railroad ties. If one wheel's not pulling, it'll show real quick. So Taurus would really like to make a shot, but the man in front of him had trouble in this lane. That's Eldon Depew. Will that affect his driving concentration? We got to wait and see, Gary.
The youngster from Granite City, Illinois, just across the river from St. Louis in the near lane in Taurus. The far lane from Carolina, the Carolina Crusher and Gary Porter.
Both big Chevrolet monster truck with a Snoopy nose of Eldon Depew. Flat drilled the Crusher, but the Crusher pulled him back on the other end. Depew's in trouble.
Oh, he high sides it, brings it back down. Eldon Depew had the whole shot, but out of nowhere comes Gary Porter, and the Crusher takes it. Boy, let's look again, Army.
This kid drilled Porter on the starting line, but see how close Porter stayed to the ground? He settles down, all four wheels biting. Now he launches good. Meanwhile, Depew hits kind of cockeyed, and that did a lot of damage to that truck.
That's why you're in that configuration. Stay on the throttle. The first thing a driver wants to do is back out of it. That's the wrong thing to do.
Exactly. You got to throttle up, plant the horsepower, try to get it settled back down.
So the victory in round one goes to the driver of the Carolina Crusher. That is Gary Porter. He's with Army.
Well, Gary Porter just put one of the big guys on the trailer down here. Taurus literally tore it up trying to beat you. Wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, I noticed he got me off the line a little bit, and, you know, I thought right then, you know, maybe I had lost the race, but I tried to stay with it. The truck settled down good between the two sets of cars, and, you know, and it seemed like the truck just went straight for me.
And he will face the winner of this matchup between Snakebite and the Carolina Crusher.
Well, this is going to have the crowd on their feet because you got all the makings of a battle. You got kind of the mystery guy, the Snakebite Ford. And then the other side, you got this kid out of North Carolina who's been a player carrying the Chevrolet colors for a couple of years. classic battle, good hard racers. You know, this is going to be one just to kick back and watch. I think it should be basically a pretty even race.
This is a test between two drivers that have gotten stronger every weekend. Gary Porter came into his own last season, and now this year, snakebite is certainly a factor. And look at snakebite. Colt Cobra with the advantage, but here comes Porter. Who won it?
Cobra looks like he missed the second jump. We got to wait and see. That was, like I say, that was just a good race.
I'm not sure who won it. Let's take a look again.
What? Look at the wheel. 10,000 pounds, and he's doing a wheelie, Gary. You believe that? But he's out of shape right here. And flies off of the cars.
He's been disqualified. He's out of bounds. Gary Porter will take the victory. Watch as they come to you right here. Snakebite is in trouble big time, and he is out of bounds. The victory goes to Gary Porter.
Well, Gary, on a day with lesser unique situations, two old horses are going to go at it with two of the smallest motors here, you and Scott Stevens. It is. You know, I blew my big motor up. This motor I have here is 4 years old. It's the first blower motor I ever had. You know, I really hated to put it back in because I knew it was real small and I would be out horsepowered by everybody here. But, you know, I had to do something to come and make the race, and, you know, it's working good for me.
Well, Army, finally, after a day of controversy, we are ready to crown a champion here in Missouri. Scott Stevens in the Auto Value King Crunch will go up against Gary Porter. Right there is Gary in the Carolina Crusher.
Well, these guys have gone head-to-head many times before, but, you know, it's just like you say, everybody just kind of wants to get this one over today. Porter's motor's in the front. Both crew chiefs checking everything out. Stevens' motor's in the rear. When the light goes green, we're going to find out who the winner's going to be real quick.
Here the RPMs rev up. The green light comes on side by side. They go to the second set of cars, and it's Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher by what? Maybe a fender?
That was a good race. That, you know, I'm glad it ended that way. It's been a day of controversy and everything, but when it came down, side-by-side final, and Porter shows his appreciation to the crowd.
One more look at your championship run for Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher. They are side-by-side right here, but the advantage about right here goes to Gary Porter. He takes the victory. Here he is with Army.
Well, Gary Porter, I guess if you don't give up, you just keep staying after it, your ship's going to come in someday. I guess I'd like to thank all the guys back home at the shop that helped me the last couple of weeks. You know, we really had to work hard changing motors, had some other problems with the trucks. You know, my crew guy, Corby Hollis here, everybody just gave it 100%. You know, we just stuck in there and it's paid off.
Congratulations to you.
Okay, thank you.
On a day filled with controversy, it is nice to see one of the true gentlemen in the sport take the win. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. We'll see you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power. There's a look at Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher, as he will go up against, no problem, the new truck for John Moore.
John Moore is still trying to get the handle on this truck. A lot of new designs. We keep talking about it. He's hooked up with a new sponsor, the HPX people. They've come up with a new idea, a new theory, but the truck is a lot softer, spongier, if you will. Keep an eye on it. It doesn't have a lot of forward to back motion, but a lot of left to right motion. Right now, he's tough. Look at that. Look at that.
Boy, is that a photo finish? John Moore, no problem. Gary Porter, the Carolina Crusher, we could have a photo finish.
Well, Gary, the officials are saying, yes, it is a dead heat, so they should come back and go again, I guess.
The rules would dictate if it is a dead heat, they run it again. Let's take a look now at the replay. John Moore and Gary Porter, a dead heat, a photo finish. They have to go back and run it again, but right now there is a discussion at the start-finish line. Let's go down and listen in.
Yes, that is correct. John does not want to run again. Thank you. Thank you, John. Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Gary Lee along with Army Armstrong. Round one competition continues.
Gary Porter is going to be coming up against John Moore, and I want you to notice the front end of these trucks. Moore's truck is set up real loose, okay? I'm going to point it out to you. When the light goes green, it takes horsepower to raise the front end of Moore's truck up. That is a disadvantage right now with the new chassis set up. I talked about Moore's truck, didn't come across and look at the truck closest to us, Gary Porter. When that light goes green, the front end stays down and the truck goes forward. So what I'm telling you, they're still trying to get the chassis dialed in on the Ford. The raise, see it, is costing horsepower. That allows Porter to get out just TT to take the win.
Well, of course, Gary Porter has a truck he has worked with a couple of seasons. John Moore has a brand new racing vehicle. and it's going to take some time to work out the bugs and get that suspension and chassis to work.
Exactly. Notice how much lift there was in the front end. Well, the truck is designed to lift. Matter of fact, that design comes from off-road racing out of the Baja California circuit, but they've got to tweak it a little bit more, Gary, to get it.
Now we are in action, round 2. Carolina Crusher, Gary Porter out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, in the Chevrolet. He has certainly been a force the past couple of seasons, and he will stage against Big Blue, Bigfoot, the Ford, of Bob Chandler out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Gary Porter is your defending champion in this series, so he would love nothing better than to do it 2 years in a row, but Andy Brass is not going to have a bit of that. Look at here.
Once again, we emphasize how important it is to cut a good light, and right there he underscored that.
Andy Brass is, you know, we've got a truck named Snakebite, but Andy Brass today has snake bite-like reflexes. Look at that. But he's not powering real big over the first jump either. You notice that, Gary?
As we see Andy Brass put Gary Porter on the trailer, and there is a look at Gary Porter. Once again, he is back because of the breakage of a couple of trucks. So we have Gary Porter, the second fast loser from round 2, against your fast loser, the Auto Value King Crunch of Scott Stevens.
Now, for all intents and purposes, both these guys were back in the back. They had their helmets off, their neck braces off, and all of a sudden they say, hey, you're back in. So they had to jump back in the trucks. Neither one expected to be here, but one is going to the final. Which one's it going to be? Will it be out of Carolina, or will it be out of the new Indianapolis-based operation of Scott Stevens?
Very even at the start, but it looks like Gary Porter by a fender, and Gary Porter does indeed advance to the finals. Gary Porter out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, in the Carolina Crusher, knocking out the Auto Value King Crunch.
Well, it's amazing. You know, the finish line, just give you a little information, the finish line of the monster truck is located 6 feet in the air. Why? Look at the finish line here. If you had the lights on the ground, they would have literally flown completely over them. Both trucks fly to the finish line right here.
And it's by a wheel that Gary Porter wins. But look at this, Army. Gary is being towed back to the paddock area. We could have another interesting turn of events because he has found a spot in the championship if that truck's not broken. You look at Scott Stevens in the King Crunch, the Auto Value King Crunch, and he goes up against the Carolina Crusher, Gary Porter out of Wadesboro, North Carolina.
Well, these guys have been here before. Stevens, you know, you referred to Heidi talking about being on the wheels. He spent so much time on his lid last year. That's the vehicle closest to us. I think they finally got that chassis squared away. The Auto Value people have teamed up with this guy, and he's carrying a good number for him.
And he has it. I think he has it. King Crunch. Perseverance paying off for Scott Stevens. He was upside down so many times last year, but he's persevered.
Well, he just worked through his problems, you know. He's got to be tickled to death just to go back and not have to put that thing together after every run.
One more time, almost even. In fact, it looked like Gary Porter had a bit of a hole shot right there, but it's in this area right here where by inches the victory goes to Scott Stevens. He's with Army. Out of St. Louis, Missouri, there's a good look at Fred Schaefer in barefoot. And this is a big Dodge out of the state of Illinois.
Yeah, Fred's teamed up with the Mopar people to put that Dodge name right back on top of the truck selling list, and he is going to represent them well, but not going to be a walkover because Gary Porter out of North Carolina is not afraid of the Dodge at all. Porter, we've seen him before. He represents the Chevrolet camp. He'll be going 512 cubic inches Chevrolet engine, barefoot in the far lane, 426 cubic inch Chrysler, both of them running alcohol, supercharged engine, both generating around 1,800 horsepower. The starting line will win this one. The guy that moves quick, kind of like a street fight, the guy that gets the first swing will more than likely win.
Even off the first set of cars, almost totally even at the finish line. Who won that thing?
You know, this is amazing. People may question the legitimacy of monster truck racing, but you've seen guys flip to get in it, side-by-side racing. It's about as real racing as you're going to see anywhere in America. The B.F. Goodrich people in PENDA are bringing it all over the country.
We saw Fred Schaefer win the first round. We should tell you that Overkill was the victim of the Carolina Crusher in round 1. Let's take a look again. The officials are now saying that the Carolina Crusher is victorious in this one. Look how far over Fred Schaefer is, and right there by what, 3 or 4 feet?
Well, Gary, he literally passed him in the air. What are you doing?
Well, now we take a look at John Moore's No Problem, the latest No Problem truck. This is a longer wheelbase than we've seen in the past.
A lot of off-road technology on this No Problem.
And There is Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher.
Gary Porter comes back with a tried and true Chevrolet, a privateer in the sport, out of North Carolina, more in a far lane.
And Gary Porter likes the longer, faster outdoor tracks. Works very well outdoors when he has more of a shutdown area. He's on the throttle, and it's all Gary Porter. As the no problem Ford noses over, and Gary Porter takes the victory, so it will be Porter and the Bigfoot of Andy Brass in the finals here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Look at the superstructure inside the cockpit there with John Moore. As Gary Porter takes the victory, and he will advance to the championship round.
Well, these guys, they've been here before. It's about an even toss. I think the big equalizer today is the track, because horsepower doesn't mean a whole lot. You got to get the bite, but the track itself. You notice how Porter rolled over the first set of cars. Now he picks up on the throttle, but he had to clear the first set of cars, get in no man's land, and then go for the throat, if you will.
And there is a look at Jim Kramer, the vice president of Bigfoot Incorporated, the former Bigfoot driver and a guy that did a lot of training of Andy Brass, as you mentioned earlier, as we take a look at Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher, GM against Ford. And there's the big blue Ford, Bigfoot 10.
And they're just about, the word we get is there is such thing as a Bigfoot 11 on the drawing board. I think the sport's not going forward. The technology each week keeps coming out. Porter driving the same truck he's had for a long time, the privateer. But you're not going to scare him one bit. Andy Brass, a class driver and a class rig. It's a classic setup, Chevrolet and Ford.
It's a team effort, too. Remember, Bigfoot with Andy Brass got upside down in qualifying. They had some repairs to make. They made the repairs, and here he is in the championship round against Gary Porter. In the background, the Pepsi Coliseum. So many fine sporting events indoors here at the State Fairgrounds over the years. And it's going to be Andy Brass. Andy Brass by a fender, and still the enthusiasm is right there. How many years has that man, Jim Kramer, been around motorsports? But he's still very enthusiastic every time Bigfoot wins.
The victory is just as sweet now as the first time they ever got in this truck.
It's not often that Jim Kramer is here to watch the Bigfoot 10 compete, because he sometimes is in other parts of the world displaying other Bigfoot models.
Literally, plus he runs the research and development program, so he's a busy little camper. We're glad to have him here today. And, you know, he's just as happy about the win as Andy is. We got a good race here. Both trucks leave good. No man's land is where the Ford settles down. Brass zings it.
And right there, you can see by a fender, Andy Brass is victorious. Now we take a look at Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher. Gary pulls alongside the stage next to Barefoot and Fred Schaefer.
Both drivers have finished their dry hops. A lot of drag racing coming over to this sport as far as the technology. They're clearing their track out. First jump looks good. No man's land. You call it. I can't.
No, I can't. I can't from up here. We'll wait for the official word.
You
And
ever
the
wonder why
official word is the Carolina Crusher. Oh, that had to be by inches.
Boy, the finish line in a monster truck is 6 feet in the air, and you just saw why. Put it on the ground and it flown over.
The fans were watching. They don't have the luxury of having an instant replay. But we have just been told by the officials that Gary Porter, right there is Gary, in the Carolina Crusher, takes the victory. Let's watch from this angle.
Now, Gary, both trucks lead the line. Good start, but you can tell the cylinder's already going away on Porter. But the problem is Schaefer's making so much power, he actually two-wheels it. He takes two wheels, puts them in the air. Meanwhile, Porter getting down and dirty on all fours and going to the line first.
Let's go trackside, Army.
Gary, it's amazing how close these monster trucks run to each other now, isn't it?
It is. I just tried something different that round right there. I went to a faster gear that I'd never run before. I didn't know if I'd smoked the transmission or, you know, or if it had win the race. It was sort of a do-or-die situation.
When you were pulling up against the Dodge, now everybody knows he makes horsepower. Is that why you made the gear change?
That's why I made the gear change, and I knew that he had me out horsepowered. I was going to have to try to cut a closer light than him, and maybe I could pull him a little bit during the mid-range, but I knew that I was out horsepowered, and I was sort of the underdog going into that round.
And the underdog advances, but keep in mind, if Fred Schaefer is the fast loser, he also could advance to the semifinals. There's a look at Fred Schaefer in Barefoot and the Carolina Crusher. This is a rematch of the quarterfinal because Fred Schaefer comes back as the fast loser.
Deja vu. We're going to see it one more time, and I guarantee you we're going to see this truck leave the starting line with a different attitude. The previous round, he kind of got his horsepower squared away in no man's land. He'll adjust the chassis. The right lane told us the previous round he made a change in the transmission to try to compensate for the horsepower he was down compared to the Dodge. The Dodge was changing his chassis, trying to get it to stick the horsepower to the track. Let's just watch the light go green and see who's going to go to the other end.
Once again, the last time these guys had a shootout, the Carolina Crusher by a virtual final finish won it, but this time it's the Dodge. It is the Dodge barefoot of Fred Schaefer. So Fred Schaefer comes back as the fast loser, goes into the semis, and now he goes on to the finals.
Well, the final's going to be Ford and Dodge in Indianapolis. Porter, nothing to be ashamed of. He was running good all day long.
Brand new vehicle on the circuit. You know, these guys keep coming up and updating. The paint stays the same. You've got a driver here that normally we do not see in this truck. This is Gary Wiggins. He's taken over as the number 2 driver for the Gary Porter operation. But this truck here, Gary, has impressed me. Kirk Dabney comes out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He bought this truck, and in a very short time, he's really adapted to it. He's got the feel for the truck. He works good with the truck. He could be the best kept secret in the sport, like I said earlier.
Well, you think today Kirk Dabney could really have a chance here?
Yeah, I definitely do. This track is conducive to that type of suspension. Look how smooth he is.
And he takes the victory. The far lane, the nightmare truck. Kirk Dabney out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He had a long, long way to tow to get down here to southern Florida, but he takes the victory here at Florida Sports Park.
And see, the right wall did not intimidate him one bit. He knew that truck was going to land straight. This truck runs an older style suspension. It has a tendency to bounce straight.
Well, that is one advantage as he keeps it straight and takes the victory here in round 2. And in Naples, a beautiful day with the hand. Look at that. There's a burnout.
Yeah, you don't do it in the bleach box in this sport. You do it in a sand pile, though, back in the back, Gary. You're seeing a lot of the same characteristics come over from drag racing. The guys preparing their chassis. Bill Brand Chevrolet's teams up with the Carolina Crusher this weekend. They want to try to put this big bad blue Ford on the trailer. The big bad blue Ford, they figured out something in the drivetrain because they're actually doing wheelies now with a 10,000-pound truck. So the technology keeps going forward. Whether you like Dodge, Ford, or Chevrolet, everybody's trying to out high-tech the other guy.
And of course, this is the Carolina Crusher, the new Carolina Crusher, as we also look at the new Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot 10.
And every time you hear about a new truck, they just upgrade the truck. Again, getting back to the technology question. Yeah, exactly. Keep going quicker and faster.
Look at the torque in Bigfoot as Bigfoot. Oh, it was driver's side down for Gary Wiggins. He looked like he was in the Auto Thrill Show there. Boy, he hit over on 2 wheels.
Well, Joy Chip would be proud of him.
Well, the victory goes to the big blue truck. That was Bigfoot 10, Andy Brass, but just by a fender. Watch the far lane. Watch Gary Wiggins. Look how far over he gets on the left side. Over the second set, and right there, he almost brought it on over.
Almost high-sided. You're exactly right. Good camera angle. What it is, it shows us he did not hit the jump square. That's exactly what the problem was, but he brought it back in.
Well, as he will line up against Gary Wiggins in the Bill Branch Chevrolet, that is the Carolina Crusher.
You know, it's kind of interesting. Gary comes over. He's been around the sport a long time, but he's teamed up with Gary Porter to drive this truck for him. And you notice what they did on the starting line? You're seeing a lot of the technology from drag racing come to this sport. They're doing what we call dry hops. They're trying to get a lot of heat in the transmission. Mark O'Gara of Diamond P Sports takes you on board with Andy Brass.
Oh, who won that one? That was close. Did you see the wheel stand coming over the finish line by Gary Wiggins? Talk about horsepower.
Man, they're loving every minute of it. How'd you like your ride?
I like that. I want to drive Bigfoot by myself sometime, though.
By yourself.
You're not going to go for a ride?
No way, no way.
Let's take a look again as they drill this hole shot.
Yeah, but they both roll the first jump. Now they're on the throttle. Now they pull that trigger.
Andy Brass has the nose down. He wins by a fender. There's a look at the popular Grave Digger, the 1950 Chevrolet panel truck. Lyle Hancock out of Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina.
Well, Gary, following John Moore's red light in the first round, Hancock still had to make the call and make a run in order to get a time to determine what lane he'll go in the next round in the Brave Digger monster truck.
Yeah, and he'll be taking the fast loser on from round 1. That would be the Carolina Crusher with Gary Wiggins. Of course, Gary really pressed Andy Brass in round 1. In fact, he had the nose up in the air doing that wheelie across his finish line. Had the nose been down, he may have knocked out Andy Brass. There's a good look at Gary. In the Carolina Crusher, he takes on Lyle Hancock, the near lane. in Grave Digger.
Both drivers are going to attack that line. Hancock figured it out. Look at the bounce.
Well, a problem over there with Gary Wiggins. It's all Lyle Hancock, but obviously a major problem with the Carolina Crusher right at the starting light. And looking very dejected, unloading the cockpit, is Gary Wiggins.
Yeah, but on the other side of the slate, that Gravedigger truck is looking good. Hancock drive that rascal. Watch the bounce it takes. See, its wheels up and tags down and flies.
Well, let's go pit side with Army Armstrong, find out what happened to Gary Wiggins.
Gary, something went away on it. What was it?
We feel like it was the input shaft in the transmission because it went away right off the bat.
You went up there with kill in your eyes. If there's ever a run, it looked like you were going to pick the truck up and carry it. It was that one. It just didn't work out that way.
I know. I went up there intentions of just taking off at the lights at the right time, working at it because I knew he was a real fast competitor, and I just figured that this was going to be the time for me to beat him, but wrong again.
As we take a look at Gary Wiggins out of North Carolina, he drives the Carolina Crusher. This was also in round one competition against Wayne Smozanik in Tropical Thunder.
We go on board with Wiggins. Well, I'll tell you what, Gary Porter's picked him a good driver to go into that number 2 truck, Gary. Lyle Hancock could be the guy that everybody's trying to keep a hand on. He is going after the Carolina Crusher, running under the sponsorship of the Bill Brandt Chevrolet people. And Hancock knows that he cannot roll over on this guy. Gary Wiggins is a hired gun. Gary Porter, normally the driver of the truck and still is the owner, but he has hired Wiggins to come to the Hoosier Dome to try to shoot these bad boys down. And believe me, that is not going to be an easy task.
So we have the Gravedigger with Lyle Hancock, the 1950 Chevy panel wagon, one of the most popular trucks on the circuit, alongside Gary Wiggins in the Carolina Crusher.
Both drivers working the lights are going into the lanes.
Good in-cockpit view of Gary Wiggins.
As soon as the truck moves, he shifts the transmission.
Oh, and he's in trouble.
Whoa.
He almost rolled over. He hit one of the ramps there. We have a motorcycle show as well here in the Hoosier Dome tonight with a ramp jump, and he hit the takeoff ramp. So he was well out of control, out of shape there as he landed, but it was all Lyle Hancock. And I tell you, this guy is really coming on strong.
Yeah, he's making a name. The truck has always had a name for itself. Hancock is making his name as a driver, and he's a good one. Again, Gary, notice the wheels up start. Definitely an advantage on short courses like this.
But it was on the landing that Wiggins got in trouble, had to hang on there. It gets very slick over there on the concrete when they get off that dirt. One more look now coming right at you. There is Gary Wiggins in the near lane. And you can see that it's all Lyle Hancock in the far lane, but right there he gets in trouble.
Yeah, once he gets off the dirt, the concrete really could be the worst thing in the world because it's a little bit slippery. But the winner of that round, the Gravedigger,